Shayne, hello. First podcast.
Yes, actually.
Welcome. So we're going to do a quick fire round, quick exposition, context before we dive into the journey that you've been on. Name?
Shayne Connolly.
Where do you live?
Townsville in Queensland in Australia.
Which isn't particularly close to here. So what are you doing over in Scotland?
No, it is not. We are on holidays. I haven't had a proper holiday for a few years. So enjoying the beautiful Scotland.
What do you do for a living?
Own a business. It's a software integration business, and I don't do a lot of work anymore, but it's, yeah.
Keeps things ticking over and allows you to focus on the journey that you've been on, which is what we're going to focus on. It was a long 10 years to
get there, though.
Yes. And I'm sure we'll dig into the parallels between business growth, training growth, where there's crossover, where there isn't crossover, the things you've learned that you didn't learn in business and everything as we go. But I think let's just lay out the stats from the start. When you began focusing on losing weight, you weighed
145 kilos.
And recently, having completed Ironman Cairns.
Before I went on holidays, about 108.
Which is remarkable. So I think a virtual round of applause from everyone. It's been, we've been with you for most of that journey, which has been an absolute privilege. I've been helping look after your training, and I've loved doing so. Shayne is one of the most compliant athletes we've ever had the privilege of working with. And I think that is really the focus of what I want to discuss, which is why for you, having a big, hairy, scary, intimidating goal, a performance metric-based focus has been the thing that's helped you find and understand sustainable weight loss. Because why did you decide you wanted to start losing weight?
Well, it was really mostly about, we had our first grandchild last year. And that whilst that wasn't the only thing that triggered it, one of the things that it made me think about was that in 10 years, 20 years time, I want to be able to be running around, kicking a football, being the fun grandparent, because you don't want to be the boring one. And what it really made me think about was that our youngest daughter is about to finish high school next year, and we would be free. We have a successful business, and what am I going to do with my free time? And being overweight and unfit was, how was I going to do all the things that I wanted to do? I just couldn't see a happy, fulfilled life post children unless I got my shit together and, got fit. That was really the long version of the short story.
Was there a moment that decision was made, or was it sort of a trial and error process that
I'd love to say that there was some magical moment. I've decided this several times over several years, and I think the grandchildren was probably it makes it more real, like time moving by. You guys are still young, you don't quite understand yet, but as you get older, it does feel like it moves faster. And so you just needed that marker of having a grandchild was really like, well, it's real now. You're getting close to that time where you want to be able to do everything that you've dreamed of doing your whole life. It's got to happen.
Amidst the journey that we've been on, which we'll obviously break down, what do you think the things that led to you gaining weight were? Was it the focus on the business? Was it putting all of your effort into one thing and sort of losing sight of other things? Have you reflected upon how you got to the starting point versus the person you are now, and really thought about that in detail?
A lot is the short answer. And I think I don't think there wasn't one thing that led to it. It was a series of prioritization mistakes. And when you have kids, your natural instinct is to put them first in everything. And I think that's a mistake that everybody makes. Whether you ever put on weight or not, you think that they're the most important thing in your life. And they are. Unfortunately, you are the most important thing in their life. And so if you mess up your priorities, it can have if you don't look after yourself and they lose you, then you putting them first in your mind, it was ineffective. You're missing the point, I guess. So that was one of the things. The business was the other thing. We needed money, we needed to live. And so everything found its way to be a higher priority than me looking after myself. The irony of it, which isn't lost on me, is that if I had have kicked the bucket, none of those things would have mattered, because the thing that I should have prioritized, which was my health and well-being, was the thing that fell to the bottom of the list. And so it's easy to say, but harder to do.
Have you thought about, this is multifaceted, but have you thought about whether or not you regret doing those things? Because obviously with the prioritization that you've implemented, it's led to you having a successful business that allows you to be quite free with your time because you've delegated successfully. And therefore you've achieved a freedom that has come at a temporary cost, because we're in a much better position now. But I guess, would you have done things differently?
The real truth of it is that I always had the opportunity to prioritize things correctly.
Okay.
And I think everybody does, because you would, no doubt, as a coach, you would hear it all the time. I don't know where to find the time. I don't know how to fit it in. All those things that I said in my mind when I prioritized business first, or the kids, or the other things. There was always time for me to look after myself. It was really just an excuse at the end of the day. So when I look back and go, do I regret doing that? What I regret is not being honest with myself and saying, of course you got time. You get up at 5 o'clock, get up at 4 o'clock, do it then. There is time. You just didn't want to choose that.
And that's important to underline. That's not actually that uncommon in Australia. A lot of people are up surfing and riding bikes and running and walking at 4 in the morning. Yeah.
You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger said it best. If the person you want to be gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. If that's what you got to do, then do it. Your choice isn't about your priorities, really. That's what it looks like on the surface. The choice is really about how honest you want to be with yourself about why you're making those choices. And it was, for me, it was just, that was the easier choice, was to say, I put my family first, I put the business first. So yeah, I got fat. That's the acceptable line that you can tell people, because they'll go, oh yeah, I understand that. Whereas now I tell people I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go for a 5-hour ride, and they look at me like I'm crazy. So isn't that stupid?
You're in good company here, don't worry.
But think about how weird that logic is, that people think that that's weird, but it's okay that I got fat because I didn't prioritize that. When you think about it, it doesn't make sense the way that the world looks at those things. Everyone says you should prioritize your health, but when you go and do it seriously, everyone looks at you like you're a little bit crazy.
I mean, maybe I wonder, there's maybe a discussion on thresholds. I would probably argue that I accepted years ago, I've maybe crossed the threshold of, I'm doing this for my health. As we were discussing before, running 250K in one go might have crossed a line where doctors are like, you could just run 5K for the aerobic benefit we're looking for here. But I think I think the key detail there for you is that you've gone from, in people's minds, one thing to now being completely unrecognizable. And I think that's what has blown me away the most about this journey, is your compliance and ability to get to what was a local race, Ironman Cairns. It was just up the road, which I can imagine has some sentimental value because it's there, it's been there for a while. You've always thought, oh wow, what a crazy thing. But the unrecognizable characteristics and attitudes that you developed along the way through this journey that have nothing to do with the medal that you get to hold or the tattoo that you've now got as a result of the event itself. So almost 40 kilos lost, more to go. We'll talk about your goals at the end. Mm-hmm. What have been the biggest takeaways? What have been the things that have surprised you and that have stuck that hadn't done previously?
I think one of the biggest things for me, because obviously, you know, the old saying that you build a six-pack in the kitchen, not the gym, which I never really understood. I mean, I understood it logically maybe, but not. Now I really understand what that means in terms of how little we actually need to eat to live. You know, I don't know. I consumed huge amounts of food as a teenager. And just turned that down like 20% as I got older, and really needed to turn it down like 80%. And so, but the reality was that as an adult, I didn't have any comprehension of actually what I needed every day to just survive. Forget whether it's nice, good, bad food, whatever. Just the minimum. I didn't understand any of that. Like I didn't really have a clue. And now I understand that when we talk about my threshold is, my maintenance level is 2,800 calories and I'm going to go into a deficit, and I know what that looks like in terms of how much it is. And I didn't have any clue. That was the most shocking thing for me. And I don't think most people really understand. When you go to TGI Fridays or somewhere and you get a feed and they cover the whole plate, that's like a day and a half's worth of food. And I don't know, that was the most shocking thing for me. The reality of the world we live in versus what we should live in is substantially different.
There are a few... I can remember, I'd say 3 key moments along the way where number one was the sort of that realization that you had that then unlocked a sort of next level of fat loss in terms of sustainable, because we were pretty consistently sort of a kilo a week for a while, weren't we?
Yeah. For
the most part. Second was then I think we hit a bit of a plateau where you realized, okay, there's a slight we need to probably drop this to continue the fat loss, which means that performance might take a hit. Thankfully, it didn't. What wonderful programming. And then thirdly was, right, let's be comfortable with the reality of I need to go into maintenance mode and put that goal on hold for the time being to prioritize performance in the short term for Ironman Cairns. I remember all 3 vividly because they were sort of 3 real turning points from my perspective with your behavioral understanding of nutrition. I think it's very easy to sit here and say, especially with the sort of presence that from feedback I think we have on the internet, which is potentially to some a little bit intimidating, which we don't intend to be at all. But it's easy to say, oh, it's just calorie deficit, bro. Just eat less.
Yeah.
It's the behaviors that surround that are the key, and understanding the mechanisms at play and how you, the individual, can manipulate your own behaviors to reach that outcome is what matters, not just the outcome itself. So What were the big habitual changes day to day for you that allowed you to actually implement the change?
Well, the other side of that understanding of how much was how long it was going to take. So I think the mistake I had made in the past, and I think everybody makes, is that you imagine that you can do it in 3, 6, too short a period of time. And so that component of understanding that this is going to take me 2 years to get to the end of where I want to be. So you then stop worrying about, I have to fix it all today. Every day you just need to change one thing. Like, I went through, basically we had to just start taking everything out of our house for a start, because for me, I won't even pretend that I can control what's right in front of me, and if it's not there, then I won't eat it. So that was the first thing, was just taking stuff out that so if our daughter wants some chips or some biscuits or whatever, she has them down in her room, because I'm not going to go into her room and get them. So just understanding that part first was the fundamental part. But then it was just decreasing things over time. You can't go from you serve up a plate of food that's for 3 people to a plate of food that's in line with your calorie deficit goals in 1 week. I think that's the unrealistic part that people struggle with. So my intake has just got smaller and smaller and smaller over time. So being realistic in that and doing it in a way that now when I sit down for a small meal, or what I would consider a small meal, which is actually just a regular meal, I don't feel like I'm missing out. If you'd have given me that 12 months ago, I'd have gone, where's the rest of the...
Yeah, nice start. Yeah, what's next?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the entree. And so I wouldn't have been able to cope with that in one hit. And I think that's that's been the key for me in making it sustainable, which has got to be, otherwise you're just going to end up worse off than when you started. Making it little wins all the time is the key part. It's just the same as exercise. You've got to think about it in the same way. I can't go out and run 40 Ks when I've never run that far. So why would I think that I can go and change all of my food habits overnight? Like, people think that it's because you can control it, then you should be able to do it, but that's not how we work. And I think that it's hard to explain how you do that. Like, I can't give you a step by step, but you've got to just do it incrementally. You've got to think of it the same way that you would aim to run 5Ks. You don't go out and run 5Ks. You start by running a few hundred meters, then you walk, then you run, then you know, it's the same. You got to apply that same methodology.
So let's talk about that process, because when you first came to me, you were training, you were ticking boxes. Essentially, it was pretty much all aerobic work, wasn't it?
Yes.
Just building volume and sort of just getting used to time on feet, time in the saddle, time in the pool. And we obviously then started to refine and sort of build certain areas and vary pacing intensity and focus as we went, which obviously got you to the finish line of Cairns. So that was the aim. But along the way, how important in terms of keeping you accountable to your fat loss goals was having that performance-based light at the end of the tunnel goal for you?
In a strange way, I would call it it's almost like a diversionary tactic. What it did was it allowed me to focus on something that I can control in my mind easier. And it gave me a way to, like, if all I had to do was worry about what you'd set me for that week in terms of my running, riding, swimming, whatever it was, if I just had to tick that goal off and the food side of things was just stick below this each day, it was, in my mind, it was easier to control the exercise part. So for me, it was a more comfortable, tangible way for me to control things. And then I just had to get the other part right. I didn't think about it, just not concentrate on that, just concentrate on the exercise part. My brain coped with that better. It was easier to go and sweat than it was to stop thinking about food, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Very simple.
Yeah, but it was, and I used that. Like, it was just like, well, Fergus has set X, Y, Z for me to do this week. Tom has set X for me to do in nutrition. Just go and do that. Don't think about don't overthink it. You know, like, I don't know how to explain, like, that's what I would think when I would get up in the morning. I've got an hour on Zwift this morning. Just go and do that. I know what I'm going to eat today. Just do that. And that was my day.
Remove the guesswork.
Yeah. Don't think about the next week. Don't think about the next month. Don't think about any. Just do today. I've got to do X, Y, and Z.
So why did you sign up to Ironman Cairns? Was it to lose fat, or was it to achieve something?
Because I knew myself, running 5Ks, running 10Ks was never going to be enough to make any change. I think subconsciously I knew I needed something long-term to make it stick. So for me, it was partly to scare myself into making the change. But I think I knew I needed something that was going to take a long time, because I knew that I needed something to set those behaviors over a long period of time to help change things for good, not just for, I can do this, I can run 10Ks in 3 months. Oh, look, I've run 10Ks and nothing's changed. I needed something longer to make it stick, you know.
Were you met with any pushback, ridicule, lack of support from people around you when you said, I'm going to train for Ironman Cairns, when you started at 145 kilos?
No. I have to admit, my family were amazingly, they all wanted the change.
Because that would be a huge fear for people. Anyone listening in a similar situation.
I got to say, my best mate, Damo, he says now, when I first told him that, he thought that I had lost some sense and Yeah, he thought, but he never said that. He just said, yeah, fine, let's, and we trained together at the gym each week and we'd done lots of runs and stuff. So, and I have to say, my family, everyone around me was, ultra supportive. So no, I didn't get any pushback, to be honest. I'm sure people had their own private thoughts that thought that I was crazy. And then for me to go and put it on YouTube was a whole other level of crazy. But no kickback, nothing at all. And the whole week in Cairns leading up to doing the Ironman was I still have trouble talking about it without getting emotional because it was such a big culmination of everything.
Key detail, not just physically, but holistically for you as a human being, for people around you, for
everyone's
everything.
Super thrilled that I'm fit and healthy. And I mean, I've still got some more weight to lose, which will be like the next 12 months. But, in terms of the person I was 12 months ago versus the person I am now, like.
So what was there anything that you surprised yourself with along the way? Because I can imagine you were quite confident in your abilities to navigate problems. You felt quite resilient. You felt quite in control. You can look at life from a P&L, a cash flow, a predictability perspective, because that's those are the skills that owning a business for 10 years will give you. And you've done it well, which makes, again, I'm in a much earlier stage here, but it helps me view things more binarily, more objectively, which gives me a little bit more control over how I respond to them. And I can imagine that you felt very in control in terms of the variables, and very, very aware of what the controllables were and what the uncontrollables weren't. That's something that I noticed with you the whole way through, is you didn't feel too punched in the face when, there was a massive headwind. Oh God, I was only moving at 22 kilometers an hour. Everything's falling apart, as can often happen. So did you surprise yourself along the way?
What surprised me was, it wasn't, yes, I can be quite analytical about those things, and I am very much one day at a time. So a bad workout today didn't affect me tomorrow. I don't carry stuff like that. I'm not a baggage kind of person, full stop. But what surprised me, I think, the most was, and I will attribute this to having a coach, was how I didn't realize how far I could go. Like I don't know if I'll be able to explain this well. So I thought about 6 months in that I would be able to do the Ironman. I didn't start with the idea. I imagined at the start that I would be able to do it just because I was arrogant enough to think that I would do it. A few months in, I realized how far it was and how hard it was, and I started to doubt whether I would actually get there, which was one of the things that led me to getting a coach in the first place. Was I thought I better get my shit together and do this right. But what happened when I had a coach, when you were coaching me, was that you would push me further than I would have ever pushed myself naturally. Not because I'm a conservative person, but I don't know. I'm not an athlete, so I didn't know what was possible. And so what I noticed as I got closer to the end and we were getting to doing bigger numbers was that I was fitter than I even realized. Like I shocked myself how fit I became. And now we could just get up from this and go for a 10K run.
Well, we have done this morning.
Well, yeah. But I could do it again.
Yeah.
And I didn't, that's the bit that shocked me was, and now my goals for the next 12 months is like, wow, let's see how far we can take this thing. Like I got fitter than I ever imagined that I could be. That was the bit that shocked me. And I would never have set stuff that you set for me in my training because I don't know, I just didn't see myself that way.
It's difficult to have faith as well. You don't want to be thinking, is this too much? Is this too little? When I'm absolutely hanging out my arse on rep number 7 of 14 on a session on Zwift, am I pushing it? Am I fatigued? If I push really hard, am I going to be too fatigued to do this? It's having somebody in your corner is, I mean, obviously we're massively biased. It's a huge value, but it's the same reason that Johnny does my programming. It's the same reason that I help him with his. Is because as a bloke especially, we are the worst. If you're analytical especially, then you're just going to overanalyze everything. You're going to second guess everything, when in reality, the best thing that you can do is stick to the fucking plan and just keep showing up.
And honestly, mentally, what it did for me was it made me I stopped thinking about it at all. I didn't look at my plan that you'd set for the week and go, oh, can I do it? Can I not do it? Fergus said it. I can do it. So I'll go and do it.
There weren't really we didn't have any disasters along the way, did we? In terms of, there were no sessions that were complete, which is remarkable, especially when trying to focus on fat loss. So I'm very pleased with that as a duo. We did well, but I think there weren't any sessions where you came in 1 hour into a 6 hour brick ride because you just couldn't get your legs turning over and you felt like shit.
No.
And I guess there's some, it's important to underline that that's probably because we weren't pushing a top end triathlon performance, because it was number one, we're focused on fat loss. The amount of threshold.
We'll get to that over the next 12 months.
We'll get to that. So we'll have some hard effort sessions where you'll phone me, voice note, you fucking dick, this is ridiculous, mate. You did get stopped by the police.
Not because I was going too fast, unfortunately.
So get off this highway. But I think that is what was most exciting to me, was the faith and compliance that went into just sort of seeing it through. And whenever the punches came, you could adjust a few things in your day-to-day to sort of navigate that, but not flapping when inevitably, if we're controlling lots of variables, which is suboptimal fueling for a performance-based goal triathlon, working those things concurrently whilst also being in the gym for muscle mass, general health reasons, and supporting from a strength and conditioning point of view triathlon, but also with the goals you've got coming up next, we're going to increase the weight training volume. So I'm really pleased that throughout the 12-month period, we've kept that up, because your base is there, you can tolerate volume, your movements are really solid, and for your age, you're shifting weights that a lot of people wouldn't even know how to move, which is great. So to be able to get through that process without having complete and utter meltdowns is a really great place to be. And I think a lot of that goes down to the psychology of a session that was a little bit below par doesn't then domino into you going to the next day feeling a little bit compromised, and then the next day and then you think, oh well, fuck this, I'm gonna have a big meal tonight because I feel really fatigued, and then that might make you feel like you crave something the next day. And I do think your business background will underpin that faith in accepting variables not going your way every once in a while. So Ironman and business growth, development, ownership, what does the process or the processes have in common?
Shockingly, a lot of things. Or maybe not shockingly. I having done only one Ironman, I wouldn't have known before. But I think the principle of having of small steps towards a big goal is based. That's what business is. You don't go out and start a business one day and say, I'm going to have a $5 million business. You don't start there. You start at nothing and then work your way through it. And so for me, the overall principle of it is very much the same. So I understood that you can't start at the end. You start at the beginning and you just one day at a time. So that was why I was so comfortable with that, I think. Mind you, if I'd have done it 10 years ago when I first started the business, I wouldn't have been so comfortable. But lots of up and downs and lots of, those kind of days where you just need to put it behind you and then move on to the next day sets the foundation for that. So maybe that's why it seemed like I did it not easily, but I'd had no trouble with that. There's certainly a lot of correlation there. If you can train for an Ironman, I mean, if you can run a business or if you can do a job that takes a lot of pressure and is difficult, then you can train to do an Ironman and vice versa. The two are, there are a lot of lessons learned. That's
the real crux of my huge bias on this stuff, which I mean, anyone that's watched the YouTube channel or heard us talk or read our emails will know. Life is reps, life is iterations, life is evolutions over and over and over again until you're dead. That's pretty much kind of, in simple terms, that's how I view it, binarily. You can tell that I'm an emotionless bastard these days because of this, but that's kind of the way of looking at it in simple terms. And like you've said, I think the low-hanging fruit exposure that committing to a intimidating physical challenge can give you that will carry over to your next promotion, the next difficult conversation you've got to have, maybe that business that you've had in your iPhone notes for the past 3 years that you're not quite confident yet enough to start. All of these things, the skills that you develop and the systems that you develop and the understanding you develop through the process of committing to something that seems, in theory, impossible at the start, better equips you for all of those things. And you've done it in reverse a little bit.
Yeah, I got it back to front. I should have done the Ironman when I was 25 and learned all of those lessons, and then I probably would have accelerated the business. But
well, there we are. Life has a way. But I think that is the key. And I think if I was to, I know the answer, but point blank question, what did you value more, the process or the finish line?
Well, I know the process is much more valuable long term. The finish line was my reward for the process, is probably the best way to think about it. You know,
the victory lap. Yeah,
that was my proof of purchase. You know, I put the time in. Here's my receipt to say that I've, you know, mine's all documented on YouTube, but for most people, that medal you get, the finish line is the proof of, you know, but the reward isn't and I guess, you know, doing on the day, that became more, I realized that more, you know, because you're obviously when your goal is in front of you and you haven't reached it yet, that's what you're concentrating on, is the goal. When I was there and I realized that I was going to do it, then I thought more about the process, you know, all the things that had got me to where I was and why this was such a big thing to do. You know, it wasn't the finish line that was important, but it still was important, but it wasn't the big pot of gold.
Your process was a little bit different to others as well, because not only were you bold enough to commit to Ironman Cairns at 145 kilos whilst running a business and still having a child living at home, but you were bold enough to decide, I'm not busy enough. Let's document this all on YouTube as well, as you've alluded to already. So was that just an accountability thing? Did you just view it as a training diary? Because that's how my YouTube started. My YouTube was, look at how hard my training week has been. Donate money to Movember, brackets, you bastards. Was kind of the messaging was, this is really tough. Give me your fucking money, was the start of it. So for you, I laughed looking back at clip number 1 of you. One, the fact that you clearly never picked up a camera before. 2, that you weren't making eye contact with it. You were clearly looking at the screen rather than the actual lens. And then just
all of the above.
All of the above, yeah. So to be so bold, why did you decide to do that?
In all honesty, it was accountability. I had tried to lose weight, tried to get fit, tried to do stuff before, and there was always an excuse I found along the way. My rationale, which it's not really sound rationale, I'll admit that, it was that if I do this on YouTube, then I can't back out of it. Everyone in my family, everyone on Facebook who knows me, everyone, that would be a much harder thing to back out of should I, you know, get weak at some point. And in all honesty, it worked. Like, it worked. It did what I hoped it would do. And it also gave me a reason to think about what I was doing. Like, I dug deeper into the why, what does it mean? How did I do this? What is, you know, because people ask me questions, you know, and it made me think about the process more. So I think not only did it keep me accountable, but it made me dive deeper into what was going on, rather than just, I got to knock out these numbers this week. And, you know, I think it took it to another level for me.
I think it was Ali Abdaal that said, I think whenever he gets asked questions about, because he's a very successful YouTuber, whenever he gets asked questions about, oh, I want to start a YouTube channel, what should I do? How should I do it? How can I? Because everybody sees big new build apartments in Dubai or London and thinks, I want that. When in reality, it's everything that comes before that is kind of what matters. It's process for the outcome again. But I think he said, film and upload a YouTube video every week for a year, and whatever happens, you'll be a completely different person with a completely new skill set.
Yeah.
And that's what I see the value in. So I think your story and journey, for anyone that might be on the fence about quote unquote content creation, are a fantastic example of the complete polar opposite end of the spectrum of where people can be a little bit cynical about social media or content, in terms of you have documented for yourself for accountability. You will definitely have changed and influenced people's opinions on themselves along the way. And when you did Cairns, how many subscribers did you have?
About 1,700, something like that.
1,700, and you spent pretty much all of transition chatting to people that had watched your videos.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. Weirdly, like it is. I got to say, as someone who'd never been in the public before, that's the weirdest part, and people running through, just running through, well, at Mooloolaba where I was, and everywhere I go, people know me, which is weird, but amazing. And I've not had one of the hundreds, probably thousands of comments now, not one single negative.
Touch wood, because somebody listening is just going to go,
well,
in the background.
Bring it on. I'm ready for it. Yeah. But it's not, but you're right. People, that's been the most amazing part of the YouTube thing for me, is not me, but having other people go, you watch your videos on the weekend and it gets me out of bed and I get out and go for a run, that part, that's the really amazing piece of the, and there's hundreds of those. And so then I think, well, I better make sure I've got to get up there. I'll just get up and do it, because if I don't, these people are, not that I'm letting them down, but I don't know, just it's like this weird connection that you have with people now. I don't know how to explain it to somebody. I mean, you understand.
I get it. Yeah. But it is weird. It is weird.
Yeah.
It's,
you're part of their life. They're like part of your life now. And there's this weird, I don't know.
It's difficult. I don't like this conversation, because I know I brought it up, to be fair, but it's, it is weird. It's because I still refuse to believe that picking up a camera and putting stuff on YouTube, which I started 4 years ago, I don't even know, a while ago, has led to people saying hello in airports and saying, "Oh, I've done this because of you." I'm like, "What the fuck? How did that happen?" And it's amazing, but it's imposter syndrome as a phrase gets thrown around. It's almost like, because I enjoy doing it for me, it almost seems nonsensical that anyone else gets anything out of that. That's just a really valuable byproduct. But it does make it all the more important and all the more inspiring for the individual, like you said, to keep chipping away at it. Because, like we were discussing on a run this morning, the weekend as a social construct in my world is as ingrained as a Monday night YouTube video every single week.
Yep.
At 7 p.m. That's it. It's if it's Monday at 3 p.m. and there isn't a YouTube video going out, everything is dropped to make it. It's a complete non-negotiable, and that's only been done through iterations and time. So for me personally, it's phenomenal. I mean, we've connected through that, which is OMNIA has been built largely through that, which is amazing. But when people say I've done this because of this, I just feel very fortunate and privileged to know that other people have experienced the same joy and growth that I've experienced through the same things. They're just a few years behind the curve that I'm on.
Yeah. And
that's what's really exciting. And again, I mean, it's important. I've been training for, 12, 13 years now, consistently like an obsessive maniac, because that's just what I'm like. So there's a lot of background that I carry with me in terms of actual ability, which I think is what is important to underline and sometimes lost sight of a little bit. But if somebody goes from working a desk job that they hate 9 to 5, living in a city they don't like, maybe socializing all revolves around booze, and they decide I'm going to do something that scares me because of some stranger on the internet, and then they go and do it and they feel better for it, that is the biggest privilege in the world for me. And I think the key thing to highlight is, in this modern world, is that with 1,700 subscribers, which is not small by any means, but versus, I mean, even I with 113,000 look at some channels and think, wow, God, it'd be sick to be able to do that because we could do this, this, and this. You had people in Australia at Mooloolaba and Cairns all over you, supporting you, shouting support from the crowd at Ironman, which is unbelievable, isn't it? And I mean, I had similar in the at the Outlaw and the Double. There were a lot of people there that watched it because it was triathlon content. There's actually not a lot of people that do that. So if you can provide a gateway into a world for people to then explore that world themselves, which you've done, especially, and I really want to underline this, from a health fat loss at your age point of view, because it's an intimidating new world whereby convention in terms of the information available on the internet that's there for us all to learn wasn't around when...
Well, it certainly wasn't around when I was in my 20s.
So the opportunity you've got now is you can be the person, the sort of the arbiter of that for others. You can disseminate that information to them, and then they can make a huge change in their lives. And there might be somebody in Brazil at 145 kilos that's just had a grandkid that's decided, you know what, I need a change. How am I going to do it? Oh, this guy's just like me. And that the ripple effect of that's huge. So I think that's where I really want to reiterate to people. Your friends might think, oh, it's a bit cringe that he's talking to camera on the internet. Oh, why is he posting a reel? That's weird. That's weird. But you can change your own life, at the very least in terms of skill set, which is valuable in the modern world. Lots of ways to make money, lots of ways to explore new skills. You might have an impact on somebody personally. You might change your own life in the process. It might accidentally become a career because you love it and you stick with it. You might then actually influence your small niche and then belong to a community, which means that you can add loads of value and enjoy the process. And if the only thing stopping you is the people that you spend time at the pub with going, oh, silly video.
You're the average of the 5 people you're hanging out with.
Yeah. There's definitely something there, but I think it's, I don't often talk about the sort of the value of content creation in and of itself, but I think you're a shining example of how it can support and prop up other things rather than getting in the way. Because nothing, I mean, you'll agree, nothing gets in the way of training more than having to film it, and nothing gets in the way of filming more than having to train.
I've got better at that.
Yeah.
But the irony, the other flip side of that, the irony of it for me is that what connecting with all these people in the YouTube world has done is made me realize that there are a lot of normal people like me. Like, one of the things we struggle with, I think, in the world in general is that we always think we're the exception to the rule. We're always weirder than everybody else. What we do isn't what everyone else does. All of those thoughts that people have, is that I'm different. What this has really reiterated to me is that I'm not everyone. There are a lot of people like me, a lot of people who have the same thoughts. They have the same, and they tell you this in the comments, and in person. So it was kind of like reinforcing for me that, yeah, I'm just normal, and I'm good at some things and bad at other things, just like everybody else that watch, and they watch my content because they relate to me in that same way, So, and when I started, I was a bit dubious about being too vulnerable or being too personal, but actually that's what people really connect with is the real you, the real, I'm having a crap day today, or I'm whatever the real part is. I don't know. It was just a weird thing for me. I didn't expect that from that connection, because we think that it's like this weird, other people do that kind of thing. But actually there's lots of people like me that consume YouTube who want to see a reflection of themselves doing something. So yeah, I agree with you. If you want to have a way to keep yourself accountable to get yourself out there, you will be surprised. Unless you are doing political commentary, don't expect, people won't hate on you. I haven't seen any reflection of that whatsoever. It's super supportive, and yeah, you'll suck at the start, but don't let that put you off.
It's good. Always a student. It's good to suck at things because it gives you the chance to be better at them.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoy most about doing anything new. I'm trying to think, most recent example of something that I tried for the first time that was good fun.
Golf's the best example because I always feel like I'm new at it because I keep sucking every time I play.
Yeah. Even if you play all the fucking time. Yeah.
It never gets any better.
Yeah. It's I had the best round of my life last year. I think I was 82 over at the course I grew up playing consistently every second weekend for years. Best round ever last year with my dad out of nowhere. Following round like 140. I was just shit. And
sounds about right.
Yeah, and that second round was, in fact, Jamie, I played quite well before my wedding day, didn't I? Before I had to jump 3 holes early. Yeah. So I played 3 rounds last year. 2 were amazing. 1 was terrible. I've played 3 rounds this year. All have been. I might as well not even have shown up. So I agree entirely. But now that I appreciate just being outdoors and being with people, I can see through the performance, and I think that's why the performance metric side of things is great to hold yourself accountable to, but the journey along the way is what matters. It's the hours at the driving range that make up the performance, not the performance at the course itself.
It's the fact that I can play with my parents in a round of golf is the part that you want to hold on to.
Yeah, 100%. So the week of the Ironman, the culmination of all of that work, all of that, I mean, years of building up to this point, because you're essentially working against Shayne of 10 years.
Yeah.
So you're fighting against...
It's a tough opponent.
There's 10 years of history to work against there. Yeah. So when did... I mean, we spoke on the Monday, didn't we? Monday evening, your time, was it Tuesday evening? Either way, we spoke the week of, and nerves were setting in, I could tell, but you were objective, which is always a good thing. Nerves are good. Objectivity is also good. So combine those two things, and that's the sweet spot. Traveling to Cairns, getting to Cairns, seeing the course, what were the thoughts coming into your head in terms of fear, in terms of pride, in terms of, what was it?
Well, I mean, there were a lot of, I don't even know what kind of nerves it was to start with. Like, because I couldn't have been more prepared. Like, through your training and all of the stuff that we'd been through, I feel like I had everything nailed down. So the only thing I was really nervous about were things that I couldn't control. And normally I don't worry about those things, but when you're coming up to such a pointy end of a journey, like, you know, I was worried about those things. But it was just general nerves, you know, like I wanted to, the worst part was the waiting. Like we got there on the Wednesday, the race wasn't until the Sunday, and it felt like I just wanted to fast forward time to get to that point, to get it happening. So, I mean, yeah, it was great because I spent some time with my family. My sister and her family came up, our oldest daughter and her husband and our grandson came up for the trip. And so it was really nice to have almost all the family there.
It's a proper spectacle, isn't it? It's a proper event.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so we had 3 apartments like booked out up there. So it was fantastic. The whole week was fantastic. But the race day itself was, I don't know how you describe it to somebody. Like, it's not something that, and the video that we did was great, but it doesn't really capture.
You can't get much without having a media moped.
But
of your own, you can't
capture the feelings. No. Like that. The morning of, like, I was so emotional. I am an emotional person, but I've never been like that. Like, you know, basically walking along the esplanade to the bus, almost crying the whole way, just because of the build-up of emotion in me. And the weirdest part for me was that I was very emotional before the race, like could have burst into tears for the 4 hours that I was awake before the race. After the race, I was just calm as, and my wife was the opposite. She was really calm, like leading up to the race. She was like amazingly calm. And then after, it was emotional wreck. So it was a really weird kind of day in that respect. I was expecting to be emotional after the race, not before. But yeah, it was weird. It's
not like I guess a 5K or a 10K or a half or something where you can really have the energy to celebrate at the finish line. I mean, maybe the pros that go around the 8-hour mark, fair enough. They're finishing a lot quicker.
Barely a workout, really, is it?
But it's after you've been out and about for that long, you've had so much time to think about the victory that was getting to the start line.
Yeah.
And as soon as the switch flicks in your head where you know, I've done it, I just need to see it through, which probably for you came off the bike. I know about the
sore feed, but I kind of knew, like 20 Ks from the finish of the bike, like barring a horrible breakdown,
Yeah.
That was where I started to think, yeah,
it's done. Yeah.
Nothing's going to stop me now. I don't care if I have to crawl
Yeah.
over the finish line. I'm getting there, because the ride was probably my worry point, because something can go wrong on the ride. That's nothing to do with your preparation or your, if something breaks on the bike or like those things aren't once I got past that, the things that were beyond my control were gone. And so now, even if I had to hop the whole way because one leg stopped working, I was going to get over that finish line.
It's I think when you have that turning point in any event, that's where you can start to really just reflect on everything that's come before it. That's difficult to do if you're moving at a pace that's really, really challenging you, which again is why the pros they've got their energy at the end. It's why in a 5K, you're so focused on getting to the finish line that then you're like, oh, it's done. Okay, wow, how do I feel? Whereas you've got time moving at zone 2, you might take a walk a K here or there, all these sort of things that people will experience. That's where you think about everything that's come before. So crossing the finish line is just the moment, but it's not this unpredictable, massive emotional spike that comes from it. Like, wow, oh my God, I did it. It's you understand everything going on, which means, it's, I can imagine the joy of the spectators is a little bit fresher than the joy of the participant, shall we say. But
it was joyful crossing the finish line, but it wasn't, I never know how you imagine what those things are going to be like. Your imagination never is.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Only one way to find out.
That's right.
Yeah.
You've got to do it. But it was...
And you can't pay for it. I mean,
No.
you do pay for it. They're about 800 quid a pop, but it's but you can see where your money goes with Ironman events. That's the absolute key. You can see where your money goes, but also you can be the...
That's in all honesty, that is nothing to pay for what you can experience.
Yeah.
Like it is. And the same with coaching. Like people have, no doubt people will question how much money I spend on coaching because they don't understand what it's. But I would say the same thing about the Ironman event itself. The $1,200 Australian that I paid to do that event is, I would pay 5 times that.
I mean, you got all of your family together for a week in Cairns. That's quite difficult to do. You almost need a nail in the you need something there, don't you? So I think
there's nothing, you couldn't put a price on any of that.
It's the way I look. I think all sort of psychological understanding at this point from coming out of top universities is that money is best allocated to experiences and time with people that you love rather than on all these things. And again, there's certain allocation. I mean, some people don't understand why you spend money on cars, but if you're a childish bloke that likes hearing loud noises, then it's very, very good. But if you're not into any of that and you just want to get from point A to point B, then spending anything more than the bottom end of a car that does that is silly. There's everybody has different interests, and I think that's what we come up against most is when we have people that are in their one box that don't like weight training or they don't like triathlon. And like, well, why would you just not stop doing that to get quicker? It's like, because there's a little bit more at play there.
With the one thing that money is useful for is creating memories. Money can't really get you very much else. You can have a nice house and stuff, but that's a thing. The one thing it can actually buy you is memories. And so put your money towards that, because they're the things that and I saw a really interesting thing the other day about no one ever celebrates your career at your funeral. They celebrate all of the things that they remember doing with you. And so, that's my mission for the rest of my life, is to spend my money to create memories. I'd sort of done it accidentally through most of my life, but now I do it with purpose. And doing the Ironman is a memory that there's no amount of money. You couldn't offer me an amount of money that would make me give up that memory. Let's put it that way.
I think the key is, with these experiences, you can be the richest sheikh in the world.
Yeah.
But unless you're willing to sit in a little box for 180k on the bike and get dragged in a boat on the swim and then just sort of get carried by somebody for the run, there's no amount of money you can pay to experience crossing that finish line, having done the work to get there. It's why Johnny and I, and Jamie especially, we all love mountains in Scotland. Because, I mean, aside from helicopters, which again, I'm sure there's ways of affording, but I'm not sure on land usage and access rights, so maybe that'd be the thing. But the only way you can get to the top of a mountain and earn the view and earn that feeling in any walk of life maybe there's a financial threshold on this one, but it's high, is through sweat equity and doing the thing. And whatever your ability, you've got to do it. So it's just how much do you tap into that ability to do it. And I think that's where the reward in these things is for me personally. I know you're the same, as you've just articulated. And I mean, pretty much everyone we work with, I'd like to think that's the general messaging. So what memories are you going after next?
Well,
in fact, before you answer that, what was the first decision that you made immediately following the Ironman? Because it's very similar to a decision that I've made on a few things in the past as well.
What I realized before I'd even completed the Ironman, like on the actual day, was that it wasn't about the time, that I wasn't motivated to come back and do the Ironman faster again. That wasn't what was going to ring my bell, so to speak. So I knew that it wasn't about just getting faster. For me, it was the challenge of doing something that I wasn't sure that I could do. That I realized on the day that's what really ticked the box for me. And so in figuring out what I wanted to do next, that was what I had to work with. Because originally I'd talked about a different goal with you, which was just really around getting fast, see how fast I could get.
Yep. As we continue weight loss, get quicker, FTP goes up, weight goes down, the power ratios increase. Which
will still sit in the back of my mind somewhere as a potential goal in the future. But what I realized that wasn't what was going to get me going for the next thing. And so what I realized was that I needed, like the Ironman, something that I wasn't 100% sure that I could do, because that was the challenge that I enjoyed, doing something that I wasn't. Right at the start, I can say, yeah, sure, I'll be able to do that, but I'm not. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know whether that's really possible. And so my goals for the next 12 months are twofold. One is that I want to see if I can get to 10% body fat before I'm 50, which is next March, which is not actually a 12-month long goal. It actually gives us about 9 months to work on that one. So that's a body composition goal, which is different from a just sweating your ass off, working hard kind of goal, but equally not sure whether it's even possible for me to do it. So it's a mental goal as much as it is a physical goal for me, because I've never had a six-pack. And if I get to 10%, I'll be approaching six-pack level. And that's a weird goal to set maybe for some people. But for me, it was back to our earlier conversation about what I'd learnt on this journey about food and what I need. And now I understand those basic principles. The goal is about how far I can take that control and understanding of what I've learnt and see, and maybe inspire other people who are getting close to my age, who have let themselves go and think, you're never going to have that again, are you? Like me a few years ago, thinking, the days of a six-pack are just gone and ancient memory. So that's one of my goals. The other goal is to do an extreme Ironman. So take it to the...
Which one specifically? Shayne?
Well, the Keltman is the one on the list.
Beats chest. Yes.
Cue Highland music.
Yes. So
that's the big...
Stuart, if you're listening... Any chance of manipulating that ballot? Thank you very much.
because it's not just a regular Ironman.
It's an adventure.
Yeah, it's
and the first adventure is navigating what is a ballot, which means there's a bit of that fear that goes into it, which also it means that you've almost got to forcefully roll the dice, and you don't yet know whether it's I'm going to bid for the opportunity. And if I'm successful in my bid, you then need to confront what happens next, which I think is a really good way of framing that sort of adventure, that sort of race, because it just makes you think, right, what does this mean to me? Do I care enough? Am I going to do it? Fuck it, let's go. And that's a really cool feeling that's a little bit different to hovering over checkout on Ironman's website for 3 months before you actually do it. Yeah. So I think... I'm excited.
I want to do the high course first. I don't want to mess around with.
No. I've done that. You're correct. You don't want to mess around.
The whole. So there is some speed required in my preparation, So there'll be a couple of half Ironmans along the way and some other preparation races as well. But yeah, I want to, that'll be the pushing myself part.
Yep.
They're not just complete, but I really want to make the high course.
Yep.
Assuming the weather allows it, but at least make the time to know that I would have.
The water will always be cold. That is what can be guaranteed.
The wind will always be strong.
Yeah, and the bike course will always be 202 kilometers,
yes.
Which is a long, long day out. But it's predictable. Again, you know what's coming. There's a few key moments that you need to get over, and we can discuss that.
Well, it's a team event too, which is different from a regular Ironman.
That feeling you were describing the week of the Ironman, that's what I think extreme triathlons do really well. Is it pulls together. It pulls together that support network to actually get you to the finish line rather than just observing it.
Well, it's a whole other thing you've got to have sorted out.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just go there and swim, bike, run.
No.
It's, well, people have got to have all this stuff ready. They've got to know where to meet me. There's a whole other plan that has to happen for it to be successful. So that's something I've never done before and really have no clue what to do. So again, let's just sign on the dotted line and run into it full bore.
And then beyond that, take it as it comes. Don't think too far ahead in the future. Sort of see how you evolve, because those are two pretty big goals to work towards. I guess Kona could always linger in the back of your head if you get quicker. It's
still there. And the half Ironmans in the next 12 months will help to work out whether the one I do in March in the lead up, the time that I do there, like, because I want to push myself in one of those just to see what's possible.
Yeah.
Because obviously I should be down to my fighting weight. Everything should be as good as it's going to get, let's say, by then. So it should give me a good indication of whether there's more left, in terms of ability.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I like to think mentally I can go that far, but I don't know. I don't know what the body's capable of. That's the whole point of the setting the goal and seeing what comes next.
That's it. Well, I think that has been a illuminating conversation for all. You're an absolute natural, given this is your first podcast, which goes to show how valuable it can be picking up a camera and talking to it, even though it's a little bit cringe to start with. But given you've made a business in an industry that isn't in public speaking or podcasting, I'd say there's a lot of very, very strong testimony to the skill set that is developed from talking to strangers on the internet via some sort of SD card based device. So there we are. Any final things that you really want to hammer home to anyone listening that you haven't covered off?
The only thing, the main thing that I would like to get across to people is that, and people would hear it all the time, if I can do it, you can do it. But forget that. You need to understand that anyone can do it. It's not, don't look at me and think, well, if he could do it, I can do it. I am a firm believer that anyone can take themselves from where they are to wherever they want to get to. The biggest thing I would say to people is everyone will need help. I don't think a lot of people have the fortitude to do it by themselves, because I think that's where people go wrong. Whether you get one-on-one coaching like I did, whether you just have a plan, whether your friends can help you, whatever, find a way to get yourself a support network that can help you get there. Because without your coaching, without my family, without people from YouTube, without all of those things that sat around me, I would never have got to where I got to. So yes, anyone can do it, but start working on your support structure. Find a way to have that framework around you, because that's the bit that will make the difference, I think. Don't let people tell you the story that you can do it all by yourself. You can, just get your head down and bum up, and you need all the other bits around you. That would be my advice to people. Whether it's the training, whether it's you need all of those bits. I don't think I would have got there. I know I wouldn't have got there without the coaching, and I know I wouldn't have got there without the support of my family. And so all of those things are much more important than people realize. But yeah, that would be my advice. Get help, because there's lots of help out there.
Yep.
And you might be surprised.
Yep. Agreed. I'd be useless on my own. So,
but that's the thing, isn't it? Like we're all so.
I'd also be unhappy on my own. I think that's the key detail as well. Is if you're a recreational athlete, you don't need to be miserable and suffering all the time. And Goggins' attitude to things might serve as a impetus for you to get the ball rolling, but you don't need to exist like Goggins to be able to become a better version of yourself.
Motivation is a waste of your time. I said in one of my videos that's the biggest thing I would like to discourage people from thinking about. Don't try to get motivated. Get organized. Get a structure. Get a framework. Get a coach, get someone to give you a path to walk down. Don't rely on motivation because it will not get you very far at all. If that's what I relied on every day to get me out of bed, I can guarantee you we wouldn't get a lot of stuff done. It's just not going to get you there.
Well, YouTube channel is linked in the show notes down below, and the whole process has been documented. So if anyone is interested in watching this unfold, then you know where to go. Shayne, been an absolute pleasure. We're going to sit down and discuss some other things and might even get a bit more training done this afternoon. But as our first athlete in the hot seat, I think you're probably going to apply a lot of pressure to everyone that comes next, because that was fantastic. Thank you.
Don't be afraid. Get on here. Talk about your experience.
We'll just cut that and send that in an email to everyone. There we go. Well, thank you again.
Thank you. It's been great.